Trigger rates. This is something you're going to hear in the news, and I think this is super, super important. This episode, I think, comes out on the 5th, and then the Bank of Canada is going to announce another rate increase on the 7th. All indications are that it's going to be 75 basis points. There's also these variable products where your payment actually stays fixed, but the ratio between your interest and your principal, that's what gets adjusted as these rates increase. It is reaching the point for a lot of these variable rates.
Full interest payments is worth more than the actual payment itself.
Exactly. And that is called the trigger rate. And so you're going to have three options when this happens. One is that you're going to raise your rate. Option two is that you can actually start making lump sum payments. And the third option is the one the banks want you to take, which is that you'll opt into a fixed rate in order to give yourself some predictability. This is going to happen here in this very possibly the start of September for some people, and then certainly continuing into the fall. So
when I was broke, I had rich habits.
All right, let's get right into it. This is the Master Keys podcast. We are Atlantic Canada's top podcast for real estate investing. We just kind of talk about things that we've done personally. We're building a community to kind of discuss ideas, see what works, see what doesn't work, and share our experiences, and hopefully throw out some new ideas while also keeping track of the market.
Yeah, we're real estate investors, we're real estate agents. Between the two of us, we have 200 plus units. We've done more than 400 million in transactions. So we just can try and, like you said, use our best experiences to help you guys make your decisions and hopefully grow your businesses. And then also we talk about some fun stuff in the news.
Yeah. And we always try to bring it back home, stuff that's relevant to you. So this week it's kind of interesting. We've got guests here. It's actually friends and I guess our bosses, the owners and brokers at Remax Nova here. A lot of you guys reach out to us and ask us questions about the brokerage model and being a real estate agent. We've talked a little bit about that in the past. But this is going to be really interesting because we're going to have some questions for them, get to see how the sausage is made, see behind the curtains.
How much sausage is made.
How much money they're making, how they make their money, what the market's doing right now, all of these things. If you're interested in real estate, it's going to be some really cool insight. So make sure you stick around and check that out. We're also going to talk about trigger rates. Trigger warning, trigger rates are coming. What does that mean for those of you on variable products? And we're just going to cover some cool news stuff. What's going on with these poor millennials out there? They're struggling. They're feeling the pinch with the housing market. They're losing confidence. We've got some cool data on that. And you got some hilarious Toronto stuff as well.
Yeah. 8-foot wide houses, fake deals, and not so funny stuff. People living in homeless shelters. So
yeah, but I want to start out on a lighter note.
Okay.
Did you watch that show, The Most Hated? It's on Netflix. The Most Hated Man on the Internet.
No. Oh,
it's what the guy.
Tinder swindler?
No. This guy made the website. Is anyone up? This is before your time. Neal's young, man. See, Neal can relate to the millennials and the topics we're going to talk about today. So he made this terrible website that was all about like revenge porn. All right.
I heard about this.
But anyway, it's crazy show. Terrible person. But I saw this article. These flippers bought this property, this distressed property, and had a couple safes on it. In the safe, they found all kinds of crazy stuff. Some of which was like blackmail material.
Where?
In the safe, these people were flipping a property, and the property, when they got the keys, it was trashed, but it also had a safe.
Okay, so it's not actually anything to do specifically with the Is Anyone Up?
No, but it just made me kind of think of it because they showed some of the photos.
That's weird as hell. I'm sure people come across that stuff all the time.
Have you ever found, this is what I was going to ask you, have you ever found anything interesting?
Found a lot. Like the biggest thing is probably blades, man. The most recently, I think the podcast was on, and we found a ton of like knives and like crazy ones that were like,
oh really?
They were like looped around the person's hand, so you could have them like, if you're like fighting someone, you could like slash them and shit like that.
Crazy.
And this tenant left very peacefully, but there was probably 15 different types of like blades sitting in one of the cabinet drawers. I'm trying to think what else is. What have you found?
I found like some love letters and a raunchy picture.
Really?
Yeah, like this middle-aged couple were evidently exchanging letters, good old school letters, man. And she sent like a little picture there.
No way.
So I found that actually it was a house I lived in for a while when I was demoing it out.
I'm going to say I had a house I was flipping, and it was a bit of a hoarder house. It was full of the brim with stuff, and I was throwing everything out, but there was a bunch of like family things here and there. And so I actually just for some reason was keeping them and putting them all aside. And oddly enough, one day I was there by myself just throwing garbage into the bin, like all this random stuff that they had, and they showed up looking for their stuff. And I was like, okay, look, like they're like, no, we get it. Like you bought the house fair and square from the bank.
Yeah.
No big deal. We just want to see if we can get some of our stuff. I had already emptied the house out 90% at that point, but I did have a couple buckets of like all their family photos and some of the kids stuff and all that. And I gave it to them and they were actually super pleased. But
yeah, I hate coming across that. Same with like when a tenant leaves.
Sometimes I know sometimes a tenant leaves quickly and it's hard to get all this stuff. But I have found some TVs and stuff. Sometimes people leave behind crazy stuff that I'm like,
I know.
Left behind a like TV stand and a beautiful like 60-inch TV. This is like a $1,500 worth of stuff.
Yeah, some
and we
people
hold
are
on to it. I
crazy.
think it's for a month or two, whatever the rule is. And oftentimes people never come and collect their stuff. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
Changing lanes here really quickly. I want to talk about this survey that came out. Neal, you're a young person. You can maybe more relate to the millennials. I don't know what age
episode
millennial
about how
is,
young Neal is.
but Neal's a young guy. Me
Tell me
less
again,
so.
Chandler.
But they did this survey, and what they were doing is they were interviewing people between 26 and 41 to ask them about whether or not they felt they would ever be able to own a home in their lifetime. And sadly, 25% of respondents said no, that they felt they would not be able to own a home in their lifetime. 60% felt that they could, and then 15% kind of said that they didn't know. But across the board, 25%, that's 1 in 4 young Canadians between 26 and 41 felt that they would not be able to afford a home in their lifetime.
First thing, don't we both fall into that?
I just barely do. Yeah.
I just
38.
enter it and you're just...
Yeah. We got it bookended.
But did they say, I guess, is there any more range on that? Because I feel like of that 25%, I bet you 75% were in the 26 to like 32 range.
Yeah, no, they didn't break it down by that, but they did break it down by region. So it may not surprise you that it was highest in Ontario. In Ontario, 31% of those respondents felt they would not be able to own a home. Lowest in Quebec, 15%. So people in Quebec
is
still
really
feeling,
affordable housing.
Yeah, pretty confident. But I was surprised at how consistent it was across the country, because in BC it was 24%, in Saskatchewan and Manitoba 26%.
BC should be like 55%.
Yeah, and here in Atlantic Canada, 23%. So kind of across the board, pretty consistent that people, young people, were feeling that they would not be able to afford a home.
How does that work when the house price in BC is like 2.5 times what it is in Atlantic Canada? But
Yeah, it did kind of strike me curious as well. I guess maybe, we've talked about this before. Incomes aren't as high up here. Maybe the cost of living in some other ways is a little bit higher.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head right now just like what the actual opportunity to buy a home was. And if you weren't aggressively interested in investing and didn't necessarily get a crazy career, take a crazy career path, and you're a single person, it would be not near impossible, like in places like Ontario and BC, unless you're willing to commute for like 2 hours. Like to be able to say, I want to buy in the city, like there's probably a very, very, very low chance. So as terrible as that stat is, I'm also like, it's probably kind of realistic. And I think like in general, a lot of people talk about how the future might look like a more rent-based society.
I could see it. I could see it for
like
sure.
The UK, like if you're young, you don't expect that you'll ever end up buying a house in anywhere close to the downtown of London. Like it's just...
Yeah, they raise families more commonly in flats and in rentals and things like that. For sure.
The homes become generational. Like it becomes a lot more common to see generational properties.
Yeah.
And so I think that might become more common here too in Canada.
Yeah, and what was kind of interesting too is 70 to 75% of people still felt that it was important. Like they still aspired towards home ownership. So, that's people saying they don't think they're going to be able to do it, even though they value its importance. On the flip side, 60% of people said they would. They did feel a high level of confidence that they were going to be able to buy a home. But interestingly, within that, just over half of those people that felt they'd be able to buy a home believed that they would have to relocate in order to buy a home. They said they will be able to buy, but they are going to need to move to do so.
Yeah, like in Ontario, you need to move to another province.
Or even just, I need to move from Toronto to somewhere else, or so on and so forth.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's funny, again, you're beating on Toronto, but only 22% of these young responders felt that they would be able to purchase in Toronto. So whereas like the overall average was 60%, in Toronto it dropped down to 22%.
Yeah.
And interestingly, in Calgary, 47%. So young people right in Calgary feel like they'll be able to buy in Calgary, and that's without relocation.
And that's because I think there's the career path trajectory that you can see there. Like there's a lot. Calgary's very much a town of opportunity, and like everyone knows somebody that started at a regular level and worked their way up. And where there's so much industry and there are options for high paying jobs, and they're not necessarily super funneled into like you need to know somebody plus need to have the right education plus be in the right timing. It's more like there's an opportunity for a lot of people to come and grow, and if you work hard, those places, I find Calgary and Alberta as a whole, they reward you for hard work. Like out there, they respect the hard work, and when you do well, you get rewarded. I find some of these other places, I mean, that's a generalization, but I think a lot of other places, you can get stuck into a loop with like these big companies where you're just another person with another degree, and it's hard to get out of that cycle. But yeah, interesting. That's
Yeah, hit us up in the comments. Let us know if you think, let us know where you're listening from and whether or not you feel it's going to be attainable in your lifespan, or maybe you already have one place or even a couple places. As always, if you find anything interesting here, please follow, subscribe, ask us any questions on the comments. I want to say, we just launched our last episode.
Yeah.
And already we're well on our trajectory to 100 plus likes, as we've mentioned before.
All we had to do was give away $100.
All we had to do is give away $100, apparently. Every dollar counts these days, so people are really doing it. But now, jokes aside, we really appreciate you guys pressing like down there. So what else you got? What you see in the news? You're saying
Before I
some crazy
hop
stuff
into
in
some of my stuff about Toronto, because I was making fun of it a bunch, one thing I'd like to do, and you guys might, if you want to comment, let us know if you're interested, is this idea of homeownership being like the path. And I'd like to see what it would be like if you just took your money and invested consistently like an S&P 500, and what it would cost by the time you bought the house, all the expenses, the interest, the carrying costs, and took it out over the 25 years, and then also looked at what the housing market did over the last 25 years and see if it actually works out to be worth your time and money. Because there is an illusion that a personal home is always an asset, and it's the best way to save up money.
It's not the be all and end all.
Not be all and all, really, but
yeah, it's also about quality of life, right?
Anyways, yeah, totally. I mean, there's a bunch of factors. We'll do an episode on that sometime. The first one, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Speaking of Toronto, 8-foot wide house, 1,700 square feet above ground. So 8 foot wide, everybody. Let's just think for a second. The average house is probably
more than 8 feet wide.
I would say more than 8 feet wide.
I mean, if you're in a split entry, they're about 44 feet wide.
Yeah.
If you're in a typical narrow
35.
city home, here you're about, downtown, our lots are 33 wide, so you're typically about a 26 foot wide home.
Yeah, so 3 times the width.
Neighborhoods.
8 feet wide would be like your car wouldn't necessarily fit inside of that.
That's just
you're going to be touching both sides. Don't do that. That's that realtors. That's that realtors corporate copyrighted move. But 8 feet wide, 1,700 square feet on 3 stories.
Man, they got 1,700 square feet on 8 feet wide.
It's 53 feet long.
53 feet long.
This thing is long.
Maybe skinny, but it sure is long.
Yeah. Looks very much like a shipping container. It has alleyways on both sides.
Oh my gosh.
3 bedroom, 4 bath.
Oh my God. It'd be the easiest house to measure. Like, how wide's the bedroom? Well, it's 8 by something.
Full basement.
Man, okay.
Listed for how many dollars?
All right. Where in Toronto?
Oh God, he's asking me questions. I have to
Toronto's a pretty big place.
It's somewhere in the downtown.
All right,
you're not building an 8 foot wide house in a farmer.
So it's new construction though. Right.
It's realist. Built a few years ago. They bought an empty lot.
Okay.
It is in
8 feet wide. All right. So it's got to be in a hip neighborhood
near Little Portugal.
I don't know where that is. So let me but it's somewhere in a good neighborhood. It's relatively new construction. 1,700 square feet.
Yeah, they're all normal sized houses on that street.
Oh my God. So it's got to be architecturally significant.
It's pretty cool. It's nice. Like I'll give you a little photo of the inside here. Like it's floating staircase.
Okay. Damn, that is kind of cool.
These are just a bunch of mirrors. Don't keep in mind, that's not the house. That's the guy's mirrors.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's narrow.
It's a heat pump.
Okay. I'm just gonna say something crazy, like $1,000 a square foot, 1.7 million.
Ooh, Chandler's getting better at his TO numbers. 1.95 million.
Is that what they're asking? Or that's what it's sold for.
That's what they're asking.
Man, it does
cool.
look pretty awesome.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
I think I remember when this lot sold. Because it was a big deal when the lot sold. It sold for a lot of money.
Yeah, honestly.
Crazy. So that's the very affluent end of Toronto. What about the other end? That's not a 26 to 4. That's not one of our sad millennials buying that sucker.
So, anyways, that was just a neat one. I wanted to show you that.
That's super cool. Hopefully, we can get an image of that.
Yeah, we're gonna get an image of that flipped up on there. Take a look at that. But on the opposite end of things, sort of. This is something that's happening in TO again. I'm just gonna keep beating on TO, but there was just a bunch of news that I saw that interested me. Fake deals.
Fake deals.
So there is a company in Toronto that is listing homes. They should be $1 million houses. Everything else.
I know tons of agents on Instagram posting fake deals. Top producer.
Yeah.
Number 1.
It is Paradise Developments Incorporated. But there's a real company, Paradise Developments Incorporated, that's building out the actual neighborhood.
Okay.
There's another one that legally registered, Paradise Developments Homes Limited. So they added homes in there.
Yeah.
And they are listing the similar style, like photos of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
The houses would usually probably be with about low millions. They're selling them for $750,000.
Okay.
And they're offering a 2.95% interest rate for 30 years on these houses. 2.75%, sorry. A 30-year mortgage at 2.75%.
Cheapers.
With a
Okay.
$750,000
Now that's
home.
a fixed rate I can get behind.
And they have another separate corporation that is then offering those loans. And they actually registered that corporation as well. And so they
Okay.
have all the legal paperwork, has it all on there, and the lawyers are putting these through. So if you're on the buying end, you're buying lawyers like, yeah, okay, I mean, there's a development company on the other side of this. And there is, because they don't do the
But
whole
the homes
due
don't
diligence.
exist? What do you mean?
The homes don't exist.
What?
They're not, this is the part that I'm not understanding. And so what I think, but like here's what they're actually trying to do. They're just trying to get the deposits.
Yeah, yeah.
So before it ever makes it to a lawyer, if it ever trades hands, but if you got your lawyer to review the contract, when the lawyer reviews a contract, they're not double checking the PIDs. They're not checking anything.
Oh my
They're just like,
God.
okay,
Well, they
cool.
should
Like
be.
my client, Steve's
Well,
got
they-
a house under offer. They're asking for a $36,000 deposit.
And then they're probably just going to say, yeah, we can't close on. It's probably more to get the pre-sales to a certain point that they'll get their financing. And
No,
then
no. It's a completely fake company. The company owns no land. They literally have the whole thing backed out. There's cease and desist that are sent out.
Okay, so now they're obviously getting sued.
The lawyer contract, like they have pictures from the contract. The lawyer section's been crossed out. What they're going to do is they're just going to run for 10 months, see how many deposits they can get in, and then just go messing.
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot to mention this. This is crazy, and this is a total digression, but you know what reminded me of when this like janky looking contract came up?
Mm-hmm.
A landlord is being charged in Las Vegas because he signed a tenant to a lease. He threatened to evict her, a single mother, and he put in the lease that as part one of the conditions, she had to perform sexual favors on him. Are we allowed to talk about this?
As part, yeah, obviously.
It was in the lease.
Is that in Vegas though? In Vegas, that isn't that illegal?
That is definitely illegal. That's definitely
No.
illegal. This is. I think it's. You're talking about like is sex trade legal in a certain state?
Yeah, sex trade
but
is legal in
this
Vegas,
is
in Nevada.
I can't remember what. I mean, he was very confident about too. He's like, it's in a contract. Blah blah blah. Contract law. This. Not only that, he's a real estate agent. And a property manager, and he's like 80 something. He's
I'm
like
not saying
81 years old.
81?
He's like 81 years
Oh
old.
my God.
And an additional condition that he had in there was that she's not allowed to date anyone bigger, something like bigger and more aggressive than him. Basically, because she doesn't want.
He doesn't want to get his ass beat.
Exactly. But they showed the contract. They
Okay.
showed the contract.
Pause for a second. I don't at all condone this. It is kind of funny, some of his stipulations. It
Oh
is
my
terrible
God.
that she was having to do this if it was against her. Well, I'm assuming it was if he's 81. But
And he was still
but
charging her rent.
if it's legal to
I think it's
perform
like
acts of sex.
exploitive. Like you can't exploit someone, and you can say like threatening to evict someone. And
it's like a trade of services.
I think it's borderline blackmail or a threat in this particular case. But he's fighting it. He thinks he's got a valid contract, and
Why would you even get into this when you're 81?
I don't know. But anyway, that's a huge digression. Was not planning to talk about that today, but it blew my mind when I saw that.
That blew my mind too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, total change of lanes here.
You got me all messed up now.
Trigger rates. This is something you're going to hear in the news, and I think this is super, super important. I meant to tease it off the top here because it is so vital. We've talked about this before, about variable rates and fixed rates, and how there's a lot of expectation that by the time this comes out, like this episode, I think comes out on the 5th, and then the Bank of Canada is going to announce another rate increase on the 7th. All indications are that it's going to be 75 basis points, which will take us up to 3.25 for the overnight rate, which means most primes will be up to, I think, around 5. No, it'll be more than that. Anyway, like 5.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Either way, what's prime right now? Prime's 4.7, so yeah, it'd be 4.45 or 5.45, whatever. We've been talking about this a lot. If you have a variable product that floats, meaning as the prime rate goes up, you just kind of rise with it and your payment goes up. That stings, and you're used to it. I mean, that's what I'm on, and it certainly stings as those goes up, and those are going to continue to go up as we get these new increases.
Chandler's looking for rate hikes.
But there's also these variable products where you've got an adjusted payment where your payment actually stays fixed, but the ratio between your interest and your principal, that's what gets adjusted as these rates increase. So really easy numbers. You may start off like a $2,000 mortgage payment, and say 1,500 or 1,300 of it is interest, 700 is principal. And as these rates have been creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, maybe that goes to 1,000, and then maybe it was something like, all right, now I'm paying 1,300 in interest and only 700 in principal, and then maybe it's 1,700 in interest and 300 in principal. It is reaching the point for a lot of these variable
Where the
rates.
full interest payments or interest payment is worth more than the actual payment itself.
Exactly. And that is called the trigger rate. And a lot of people who are on these variable products who are like, yeah, but it's fine. I'm on a variable product, but my actual payment doesn't change. If not this increase in September, then almost certainly the increase that follows before the end of the year, your trigger rate is going to happen, and you're going to actually see an increase in your rate payment because you'll effectively be running a deficit. You will owe more interest per month than your current payment, which means you'll be making nothing towards the principal. And in fact, the extra interest owing is going to be accruing. And so you'll be getting less and less equity paid off on your property, which of course violates the terms of your mortgage. And so you're going to have three options when this happens. One is that you're going to raise your rate. And there's been some estimates out there that this fall, this will impact about 80,000 Canadians to an average increased payment of $200 a month, which is not an absurd amount, but it's going to be more for some people, less for others. And, $200 a month.
If you're already tight after all the expenses you're facing, it adds up.
It all adds up. Option two is that you can actually start making lump sum payments and say, okay, if I'm going to be running this deficit of $25 to $100 a month on my mortgage, I can throw down a lump sum payment of $5,000 to sort of cover me for a little while. And the third option is the one the banks want you to take, which is that you'll opt into a fixed rate in order to give yourself some predictability, which you should not do. But this is going to happen here in this very possibly the start of September for some people, and then certainly continuing into the fall. So if you're on a variable product but have a fixed payment, you need to talk to your broker about what your trigger rate is and what that's going to look like, and you need to get ahead of it. Maybe even increase your payments now in advance of this so that you're already sort of staying above water on it.
Good news, I took my variable at 5.5, so my trigger rate's another.
Your trigger rate's at 7.5?
Yeah, I got room to play. Yeah. That is very intense. I never really thought about that, but it is going to start impacting a lot of people. And this is, I'm like, it's funny if defaults start taking place, the bank stock will start dropping a bunch, but it's actually going to provide a really great opportunity to buy in because they're going to be making a fortune out of this. Fortune.
Well, it's interesting. You'll see all of the banks publish their earnings, right?
Yeah.
And all of their earnings are way down. Oh my gosh, our earnings are way down. It's because they set aside these reserves for basically debt losses, like loan defaults, and
they're dumping into those right now.
Yeah, and so those go on their books against their earnings. So it looks like their earnings are way down, but it's only because they're putting aside more and more reserves for lending defaults possibly in the future. But it is interesting to see, is this going to be another buying opportunity? Because I guess something like Q1 of this year in the States, something like 28, I got it here somewhere, 28% of family home sales in the U.S. in Q1 were by investors.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit.
Yeah, who think that there's going to be an opportunity.
It's interesting when a lot of people own multiple properties. There's also the idea of people actually having cottages and stuff like that where they were going nuts for a while, and now it's the opposite where if your personal home, your payment's now rolling over and starting to increase, you're going to get rid of the auxiliary items, and there's only so much stuff on the toy market. Things are starting to fall, car market's starting to fall, so then you got to start looking at, maybe I don't need that cottage anymore. Even I was thinking when I was looking at a second house right now, I'm like, that's going to be a lot to carry, especially if rates keep ripping. To have multiple properties and stuff like that, it's a lot of work, money, property taxes, insurance.
But what's interesting is who's going to be the buyer? It's going to be opportunistic people who have cash, and the concern is that it's going to be a lot of corporate big investors buying up the single family stuff. And I'm not talking about, the landlord, buying another one here or there. I'm talking we talk about Blackstone here every couple months, man.
Chandler's the evil corporations.
They have something like $941 billion in U.S. real estate assets, $14 billion here in Canada. They own 25,000 single-family homes already in the U.S., which is a tiny amount. That's less than half a percentage, but it's 25,000 single-family homes. And apparently, corporate landlords have acquired.
Okay, hold the phone here.
One second here. Let me hear this. So since the subprime crisis of 2008, which was the last big crash, where all of a sudden you can buy homes for a huge discount, these corporate landlords started buying up single-family homes. We're not talking apartment buildings. They started buying up single-family homes. And since in those 15 years, 14 years since that collapse, Corporate landlords have acquired 350,000 single-family homes in the U.S. That's not nothing.
I would bet my bottom dollar that 50 to 70% of those single family homes were purchased all within like neighborhoods, or they're buying entire neighborhoods out at once,
Yep.
like from banks. Like banks, like, look, we default on this entire street.
Or developers who can't unload product.
Or developers can't unload products, so they bought the entire neighborhood, or it was a purpose-built neighborhood with single-family homes. Like the ones that everyone got all heated about at the start of this year was Texas homes being purchased, single-family homes being bought, stripped from people's hands, and it was single-family homes in a condo development, so they couldn't even be purchased necessarily single by each person.
Yeah.
And they were purpose-built. When they asked the builder, he's like, I had built these for BlackRock. Like they had pre-ordered these effectively, and I was building to feed their demand. And realistically, the other thing is, like I've said before, with condos, a lot of these pre-ordered or these neighborhood purchases, if they hadn't have bought them, then unfortunately consumers couldn't have bought them, and the inventory just never would have come through. And so realistically, there'd be even less properties available, whether it's renting or buying.
Yeah, but it's still just interesting to think, because some of these groups that are going to, have an easier access to cash than most people, they can buy up distressed sales en masse in a way that even small mom and pop investors couldn't come close to touching. And where Blackstone opened an office in Toronto, people made a big deal about that, even though they've said so far they're not going to be buying single family homes in Canada. It's still kind of interesting.
There's a lot of big institutions starting to look at Canada now.
Oh. Yeah,
we finally hit that radar, because I think obviously consistent house growth. Also, the inventory crisis for these guys is good news, and they can see a lot of run up on that pricing. But
yeah, so anyway, that's kind of a digression too. But I really wanted to get into those trigger rates. What else?
So this is one that is kind of near and dear to me in some ways, but it's a crazy one. It's another Toronto headline, but the rents are so high in Toronto.
How high are they?
And we have students. So the rents are so high now in Toronto. There are students literally living in homeless shelters
Jeepers.
to get housing, and it's
Your
to the point.
punchline needs a little work, but jeepers. Yeah.
This shelter that we're looking at has 33% are students. 33% of the people are students. And
you talked about this too.
It's
like
an hour away from the school. And like they interviewed one of the tenants, or one of the students, who did not want to be named, but they were like, I could not find anything. I couldn't find someone to live in an apartment with me. I looked at basements. I looked at everything. And they were valedictorian coming out of their school. So they're not like a slump student or anything like that. Like, this is somebody that's
not
very
someone who probably
keen.
led it to the last minute. And
They
blah,
didn't
blah,
necessarily
blah,
leave it to the last minute. They were all over it, but they physically could not find anything. They were submitting applications, getting beat, getting priced out. Like, there's bidding wars on rentals. And so now they're living in a homeless shelter. And this one, when they talked to the person who ran the shelter, they said literally 33% of the people who are there every night are students.
That's wild, man. And we talked a little bit about this here, because we're such a university town in Halifax that I was really concerned about the rental market here this month in September, because I don't know where these students are going to go. Like, I don't see.
It's gonna be insanity, because
I don't see any places for rent out there. So
yeah, the school's already released that the residences aren't. Some schools are doing just all work from home stuff. Like, they're saying now all of our courses are online because we don't have capacity in person for the students. And that might actually be kind of more the solution that you start to see, is that more and more of it gets pushed to online based systems, and you come in for labs and things like that need to be done in person, presentations, labs, those things take place like that. But they're unable to do consistent courses in person because living near campus is also like hellish expensive. It's not like, usually it's like, okay, Toronto's expensive. I bet you living around campus is like another expense, right? Like, near university is always like probably 10 or 15% more than the average of the city.
What are you seeing per room rental rates in Halifax?
$1,000.
What?
Yeah. At least. If you have a nice furnished room with like an 8-month.
Oh, furnished. Okay.
With an 8-month rent, $1,000, $1,200. If it's not that nice, $800 to $1,000. Unfurnished, for sure, I'd say $800, $700. I have a building near the school, and like, if we need to fill up a room, and it's not a fully renovated house, and they're not furnished rooms, well, we put in a bed. We put in a bed, and they have a closet and a desk and chair. And they're getting $700 like that, $750, and it's not renovated.
Man, I remember it was $400 a room, maybe $500 a room when I was in university, and I lived in one place, and it was just some randoms in this place. And there was like 6 or 7 of us, and then I knew these girls. And they lived 7 of them in a house. 7 girls in this house. I think
Yeah.
they're each paying $500. It was actually on Green, which is where.
Oh,
your
no
place
way.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think where they'd be. There's a couple big houses on Green
Yeah,
Street,
it's right
but
near down
Yeah.
near Barrington. But
there's a lot. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of like all the
$800.
homes around those universities here, and that's every university town. The houses are always cut up into a maximum amount of rooms, but the rents are out of this world. But yeah, this is getting to be a pretty serious thing, and this is not something that just started. They're saying this shelter said they started seeing people in 2019. The thing that blew my mind the most about it was they're an hour commute from the school.
well, also like the sad thing is like those beds are needed for homeless people.
Yeah.
Right, and it's hard to prior. I mean, I guess those students are homeless also. Like it's a hard thing to kind of conceptualize that, but I can't imagine. I'm shocked that they could even find the beds because you couldn't find those same beds here in Halifax. That's for sure. Kind of related, but different at the same time. A lot of places have been struggling to find accommodations for workers. Short-term workers, seasonal workers, trades workers having to go into these areas, and it's been especially bad in tourist areas because, if you're a small municipality trying to get some infrastructure, some work done in your town, but you're also a big tourist destination, you can't house those workers, and as a result, you can't get the task done. And of course, in those areas, Airbnb is a big part of that.
Yeah.
A lot of the rentals are converted to Airbnbs. So I found this thing in Sedona, Arizona, which has about 6,500 units. Like it's not a big place at all.
Yeah.
But it is a tourist hub. 1,000 of them, of the 6,500 housing units they have, are on Airbnb. 1,000 of them.
Jesus.
And so what they've done, and as a result, they couldn't get any work done. They couldn't bring any contractors. So they've started a program now where they'll pay between $3,000 and $10,000 to a landlord to rent a unit out for as an incentive, an additional bonus, if a landlord rents their unit out as opposed to Airbnb or Verbos it, and they have to do it for at least a year, but they'll get anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 as a little incentive. And then I found another one in Colorado where they got as high as $20,000 an incentive to rent your unit out on a fixed term 12-month lease as opposed to short term.
That's insanity. It's
Yeah.
great for the landlord.
Yeah, like there's got to be a sweet spot there where it's like, yeah, I think I will just rent it out.
Yeah. The thing, all I can think about is like something's got to change, and they got to incentivize the construction of things. But I think there's also just the practices and the methods have to change. Like the standard way that we're building stuff is so slow and so expensive.
Right.
Something's
Yeah,
got to
that's a big
give,
part of it.
right?
Yeah.
But it's also this idea of like portable housing too. Like for a lot of these places, it's hard because if you're a developer, you don't want to go out and put up an 80 unit because they need 80 beds when they're building this new road or whatever it may be, and then it's going to dry up the next year.
Yeah.
Like it's like
Yeah.
Sedona might be like, okay, so we're building a new water treatment plant. It's going to take 3 years. It's going to employ 150 people. Once that's done, it's going to employ 30 people.
Yeah.
But
And
you had to house 100. So how do you?
Yeah, and they've said like, listen, we do not want to discourage short-term rentals because they actually we need
That's
them
what
as well.
that town's basis
right?
of income is short-term rentals.
I know it's a catch-22. Like so in these tourist towns, they're often pro short-term rental because it continues to drive people to their communities and to their municipalities. But it's a double-edged sword. In bigger markets, we've said this for a time. Like I think the way they're not going to incentivize. I don't think people are going to start coming to an Airbnb landlord in Halifax and saying, "Hey, we're from the city. We're going to give you $10,000."
No, they're going to be. We're from the city. We're going to ban your Airbnb.
Yeah, they're going to say like it's either you stop doing it or we charge you $10,000 a year.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's what it's going to be. You're going to be disincentivized, not incentivized. So it'll be interesting. But
see,
just
this
curious.
is why giving the $10,000 makes more sense, because you're about to have a rush of people that are going to race down there to set stuff up to try and get more units, right? When you start doling out cash, people are like, holy crap, they're housing people and they're giving them a $10,000 bonus. I'll flip up some units. Like I'll put some units up, or I'll be incentivized to build a duplex or a four unit or a 6 unit or even a 30 or a 50.
Yeah.
Versus here, when they are going to say, no, we're going to ban you and we're going to fine you 10 grand. People are like, why the hell do I want to potentially build? Like
That's a good point.
It's such a bad way to handle it is by constantly trying to beat it back. And that's, again, why we've talked about before, but the States has all these rules to incentivize housing construction and why people can make a lot of money through apartment buildings or flipping buildings or whatever it may be. And down there, on average, their rents are dramatically lower, and oftentimes they have an over inventory problem. They have a high vacancy issue, which is a good thing. If you're someone who's living, that's going to, the only people that don't love that, obviously, if you're a single family homeowner and the housing prices are fluctuating a lot. But on the apartment side, like, that's a valuable thing for any tenant, is to have an oversupply, because then people are going to be doing everything to get you into the units. The buildings are going to be kept up really well to get you there. They're going to add amenities.
100%.
Like, it makes a competitive market. So anyways, I can go on about that forever.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think of that, and if you're a young person out there, what you think. What's your level of confidence in the market? If you're looking for a place to rent, how's it going in your particular area right now? Are you seeing some of these things? Don't forget to please like, follow, subscribe. Questions down below.
Yeah. So and thanks for listening to this point. So we're about to switch studios here. We have our guests. We're going to talk about kind of what a brokerage is, how much money they're making, how many agents they got, what the average agent makes. So we got some interesting stuff coming up that I think I just get that question a lot from you guys, where it's like, why don't you start your own brokerage? Or like, what kind of money are they making? Or what kind of money are you making? So we're going to try and dive into that. We'll see what we get.
I'm also super curious to see what they're feeling behind the scenes with the shifting market.
They have a really good oversight because they're seeing data from hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah, and during a slowing market.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. So here we go. Welcome back. We moved studios.
Yeah, our old studio.
We're back in
like
the
it in here.
OG studio, but I want my headphones.
I know. It's different being back in here.
Before we jump into anything, like we mentioned, so we hit 100 likes 2 episodes ago, and so we said we're going to give away a phone call with a listener. So we picked someone out, MK Deuce. DOOSE.
Yeah. We'll figure out a way to get in touch with you. I guess we can message you, or our team will message you through YouTube.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for the like. Thanks so much for the question too, because he asked about the legality around cameras on apartment buildings, which I'd never thought about before. I think short answer, in the bathroom, not okay. Around
in the apartment, also not okay.
Not
just
that's a little too specific.
Yeah.
No. But I think you're allowed to have security cameras on the exterior of a building. I never thought any more of it than that.
Hallways.
Hallways too, eh?
Yeah, interior hallways and the exteriors of the buildings. I have them on all of ours.
Yeah, I have them by my storage lockers, parking, front door, back door.
As an owner, I think it's a smart thing to do, because you will have a lot of theft and shit like that. But
yeah.
Anyway,
so MK Goose. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
So
we're jumping into it. Like we said, today we're going to be talking about brokerages, and we have our guests on that are the owners, and they run brokerage that we work at, Remax Nova. So we're going to introduce them really quick, but we have Craig Snow, Nassim Klayme, and Ryan Hartlen. So, hey guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Here in the flesh.
Yeah, in the flesh.
Yeah.
So we thought this was interesting because we get so many questions from people asking about being a real estate agent. And then because we started our new group, people are like, oh, is that a brokerage? I'm like, no, we're still at Remax. No, I'm like, oh, well, how does a brokerage work? Have you ever thought about doing a brokerage? And I have to admit, before I got my license, I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. You start your own business and start a brokerage, but there's a lot that goes into it, probably more than I would ever want to bite off. But you guys decided to do it, so more power to you.
So let's get some intros first. So we'll start with Craig.
Yeah, Craig Snow. I've been in the business for 23 years, and mostly in the commercial sales. But then I worked my way up, and about 5 years ago, bought into the brokerage. And in the last couple of years, went more heavily with my partners here, Naz and Ryan.
You were doing residential at the very start.
I started off like in '99 when I got in the business. I started off really in new construction.
Yes.
And then I worked myself into resale. But then around 2003, 2004, I branched off and went 100% into the commercial world. But I deal with more on the higher level commercial.
Yeah.
So more of the pension funds and the institutional buyers than I do on the day-to-day local buyers. So.
Yeah. Do you know how much you sold, number-wise?
In my career?
Yeah.
Just about almost $1 billion now.
That's it. I would say maybe more.
Almost
than
$1 billion.
Yeah, you're probably over a bill.
I was trying to do a number
yeah.
there not long ago, and I think it was around $1 billion.
What was the most doors you did in one transaction? Do you remember?
One transaction was 454 doors.
Yeah.
And it was worth about $80 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty good deal.
No,
under
it's pretty good. Yeah. So,
Charging a full 5%.
no, it doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't work that way. No. And I just did one there a couple of weeks ago. I just put it under. It won't close till next year, but it's about $72 million, and that's about just over 200 doors. So.
Nice.
But it takes time to put these together, years of putting together relationships and working towards. You got to, a lot of people think they can just jump into the high level commercial, but you these people are looking for reputations and trustworthy and honesty. And
You probably grew with your clients too, I would say, to an extent.
I did.
Right? Like some of these guys, you started with them and they were buying smaller buildings, and now they've just kind of progressed, and you've helped them progress.
Yeah, but the institutional stuff is different, though.
Institutions,
It really is.
Institutions totally different.
you know what? I started
Some
off
clients.
one day. I mean, I had a local investor looking for a 40-unit building. I was out calling around, and when I come across the wife of a startup REIT that was starting here in Halifax, and said, "Hey, you should meet my husband and his partner. They've started a company. They want to grow." So I started working with them, and I've sold them probably half of that $1 billion worth of properties over the years, and helped them to go from a 30-unit building that they own in Moncton to now being one of the largest landlords in Canada. So that was sort of like what catapulted my career. And then all the REITs started looking at me and saying, "Hey, we want you to help us too." So
Yeah, and once you get on the listing side of things, then the
That's
REITs
it.
and the
It's
institution, they come
crazy.
to you direct and say, well, find us more of that product.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Neat.
Right on.
Neat. Nas?
Nasty Nas. Nostradamus.
This is kind of awkward now. You guys got me following Craig. After that kind of intro, I really,
You're a master of your domain, though.
yeah, I'm the residential guy.
Yeah.
So, my name is Nassim Klayme, and I've been in real estate for about 17 years. And I'm the residential guy.
You're also one of the owners now as well.
I am a full front owner now and loving it.
Yeah.
And you've been doing over 100 deals for years, I would say.
Yeah,
Like, you've had
yeah.
some crazy years. A lot of people in the city will definitely know who you are.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've been in the business for a long time, but you've been crushing it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I've been very, very blessed, but again, it's this ownership thing is a whole nother level. I tell you right now.
it changed your game.
Yeah, it did. It really did, and we've been very blessed as once we partnered up with the help of actually guys like you guys. A lot
Grinding your gears.
No, you know what? A lot of the newer agents in the business were calling Neal,
Yeah.
asking him what it's like at Remax,
Yeah.
and then a lot of our experienced agents called Chandler asking for
true.
help.
True.
So with the support of the other people in our brokerage, it just keeps making us look 10 times better as a family. So
True.
Are we the top producing brokerage now in the city?
In the city, it's kind of hard to narrow that down, but because you can't, it's hard to draw the boundaries of like who's in the city, who isn't,
Right.
kind of thing. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we'd be certainly up there in the top
Yeah.
for sure.
And like production is like a hard thing because it's like sometimes a place has a bunch of agents, but they don't necessarily do individually as well. But the sum of their parts is
Exactly.
kind of hard.
Yeah.
Like I know we're not maybe the biggest number of agents wise, but man, production wise.
yeah, we
yeah, no,
got
we
going.
got some
up there,
very
man.
productive people.
And see, and the
yeah.
best thing is Ryan will always give you the politically correct answer.
Yeah.
I would say that was very
So-
political.
very
yeah,
political,
that's
very
Ryan.
political.
Which is the
That's
perfect
Ryan.
time to introduce yourself. So,
Yes.
last but not least,
Yeah,
Ryan Hartlen.
Thanks for having me. So yeah, Ryan Hartlen. I've been licensed since early 2004 now, and got into the business. Basically, got into the business as starting out my own brokerage with a partner at the time, and didn't know anything about real estate, and basically equate that to like skiing down a hill and hitting every tree on the way down. Like it was quite an event. But yeah, many years later, we joined the Remax brand in 2010. And then a few years later, we jumped into the ownership side of things with these guys, and it's been it's been a blast. But I mean, my day to day is a lot different than you guys. I'm more or less the guy that's trying to keep everybody out of jail and put out fires when they come. So
Yeah, because your license is different. This is something people won't appreciate because if they don't know the inner workings
Yeah.
of the industry, there's a license to sell real estate, which is what Neal and I have, and also what Naz and Craig have. And then there's a license to manage a real estate company, which is a broker's license, and that's what you have. And do you guys have your broker's license now
Yeah,
as well?
I'm a manager.
Yeah. But yeah, Ryan kind of liaises with the governing bodies.
with our regulator and that kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
So we've got a couple of managing associate brokers, Naz being one of them that have the same sort of status license, but I guess I'm the one ultimately on the hook at the end of the day with broker of record, if you want to call it that.
See,
So,
I listened to your intro, and you guys introduced us as your bosses. In actuality, Ryan is all of our boss. Ryan is the boss.
He is the boss.
doesn't seem like that on a day-to-day basis, but
when it's like, oh, this seems like trouble. Better call Ryan.
Yeah.
I was about to say, yeah, every time I'm skirting on trouble, it's a quick call to Ryan.
Yeah.
How offside am I with what I'm doing right now?
But all kidding aside, I mean, I made a joke about that, and you are too. But I mean, we have a very compliant brokerage. I'm very blessed to have the people that we have there. We've got some really good representatives of the brokerage. You two being of course part of that. So it does make my job a lot easier.
Totally.
Right on.
So, I mean, I think the first question we want to ask, and we kind of chatted about it a little bit, but is how did you guys go from like being agents or being in the position of being a broker and stuff like that to owning your own brokerage? You did it right off the start.
Yeah, I kind of went through an up and down kind of path through there, but that was more or less just us having a franchise opportunity back many years ago, and and we kind of jumped in and contracted a broker at the time to do that, and then eventually got in long enough that we could be brokers ourselves, my partner and I, and then kind of took it from there. But
Yeah, for you two.
So for me, about 5
nice.
years ago, an opportunity arose where I became a junior partner in the company.
Yeah.
And, so it sort of opened my eyes as to the world of owning a brokerage. It's not what one would think. There's a lot of headaches that come along with it. And it's, everybody thinks that brokers make all this money, but it's a very marginal business. So you got to be very careful in what you're investing in and so on. And then as the years went on, I realized that the brokerage, from my mentality, because my mentality is not the same as anybody else, I found that the brokerage was like a traditional brokerage. And so I reached out to Naz and said, Naz, why don't you come in? And we had a meeting with Ryan, and he said, why don't the three of us buy this brokerage and let's turn it into something real special, something that really concentrates on the agents, because most brokerages, they think about themselves, there's a hierarchy there and stuff like that, and we didn't want that kind of a feeling. We wanted a family atmosphere, but somewhere where all the agents felt special. So we were able to do that successfully, the three of us, and we've made something that we think is something you'll never see again.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to grow on that. It's more of a lifestyle with us as opposed to just, a company that charges fees and so on. There's more to it than that.
It is like a franchise model, though, effectively. If someone wants to compare it to something, it's not that dissimilar to like being a franchise owner of any other company.
It's 100%
I guess
franchise.
In this case, there's a lot more liability exposure with what we do for a living. There's if you're owning a Subway, I guess someone could slip and fall on the sauce.
they can slip and fall in a brokerage too, just for the record.
Totally. But we're dealing in multi-million dollars worth of transactions, so I know there's all these trust account implications that we have. Just the reporting of our sales and keeping track of our records and all that. It's pretty high end, slightly boring stuff, but
There's a lot that goes into it.
it's heavy handed as compared to just say opening a normal franchise of something.
Yeah,
else.
how big is the crew that runs your guys' operation at Nova?
From an administrative point of view,
all in.
we've got probably between 20 and 25 from the administrative and managing associate brokers, like everybody that sort of has a day-to-day. And then we have our external suppliers like our accountants and lawyers and so on that basically keep us on top of things. So
Yeah, that's not a small business.
No.
You were saying before when we walked in, you guys are doing probably upwards of almost $1 billion in sales
We do.
as a whole brokerage in a year.
yeah, we do about 1.2.
That's insanity.
But that's a new high, right? Like what's the growth been since 2018?
Yeah, well, the volume just per sale on a house obviously has increased to 20-25% just in the last year and a half. So I mean, it's had similar results for us. And then of course we've had agent growth or organic agent growth on top of that as well, which has expanded upon that for sure. So yeah, it has been 2021 was probably our highest sales volume we've had. Yeah.
How much higher do you think that is? Over
I would say that was probably like 35% higher than the previous year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
How many agents do you have now?
30, yeah. We've got about 211 licensees, I think, right
I remember we used to have 115 or 130. Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
well, myself and Naz, when we started, what was there? About 105 agents, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
there
About
was
105 when we
105.
started. So.
Yeah.
But in the industry now, like in the province, there's just under 2,200 licensees, I think. And
Yeah,
like
we
that
talked
was
about
like
that in an episode, how much
1,700 or
we
so.
grew.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So,
What percentage of our agent growth do you think is totally brand new agents, and what percentage is like agents coming over?
it's almost like a 60-40, really. Like you could almost argue 50-50 in some cases. We've been pretty what do you call it?
Fortunate?
Fortunate. Yeah, thanks. To have a lot of great agents coming from other brokerages too that have just they share in the same stuff that Craig's kind of saying, that kind of same culture.
Yeah, but we've been monitoring that as well. We don't want an influx of just newer agents.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we had a good number of experienced agents coming in as well.
Yeah, the newer agents probably, it's like training a new employee. Like you would rather keep the employees you have super happy and super productive because they don't tax the admin as much, they don't tax the training as much. Just like any other job environment, you just have to bring in a bunch of people. you know, you got to train them up a little bit more and yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, how many deals on average is an agent doing in our office with 200 agents?
In our office, I mean, we're upwards of like, you know, 10, 12 deals a year on average, which is you know, probably the average in the industry for many years was like 5, 6 deals a year, which is
Both of
crazy.
those numbers
So,
are going
like,
to blow people away.
I know,
because
so
a lot of people
everyone
listen
listens. Yeah.
and
Oh,
they
yeah.
watch, you know, Selling Sunset and
Yeah.
all this crap. They're great shows. I shouldn't call them crap.
No, they are
watch
great
Selling
shows. Yeah.
They are
Selling
not
Sunset's
great
really
shows.
dropped off
Yeah.
after the first season, but
You watch it?
No, God,
$1 Million Listing is
No, I've seen
phenomenal.
the show. Yeah.
I've never seen
But
it.
people think it's a lot of transactions and all this, but to hear you say that the average is around 10 to 12, I mean, that's a transaction a month, obviously, simple math. And the average home sale in Halifax right now is probably around
560,000.
560,000. So, you know,
2 points.
yeah,
10K.
you're
Yeah.
10 to 12K per transaction.
You're
times 12
grossing 100 to 150,000 bucks a year.
you're doing all right, but there's major expenses associated with that, and it's a hard grind. I always tell people, like, you'd be much better off getting 75% of that income, like, guaranteed on a 2-week paycheck than doing it through real estate, because, you know, we have to pay into our own retirement, we have to take out our own health and medical and dental insurance, all that sort of stuff. Like, it all adds up, but that number is going to shock people to
You
hear
have to
that
drink
it's so
4
low.
to 5 days a week.
Yeah,
5 to 6
exactly.
days a
And those are
week.
only the ones that close too,
Yeah.
right? So think of all the, you know, you had to sell 15 or 16 to close, you know, 11 or 12, right?
Yeah.
So there's always the ones that you don't get
all the
across
gas
finish
money
line
driving
too.
around.
Well,
Yeah,
and
like-
the tax money. People
taxes
people
are
don't.
brutal.
You're not accustomed to actually putting away your own taxes.
Also, you have to do that. Whereas, like, you
Yeah.
actually have to set aside your HST. Like, it's a lot, which is why I've always told people, like, you have to get to a certain transaction base. And I think it's probably around, like, 20 deals to really feel like you've got a secure career that is worth the squeeze of that effort, man. Because it can be a grind.
Totally.
Yeah.
How do you guys see the market going now? Like moving forward. So everyone's doing really good right now. Numbers are up. We're talking about it all the time on here. Interest rates definitely slowed things down. You guys saw that. The volume changed.
They did.
Moving forward, how do you guys see the market changing?
Well, I know if I look back at when I got into business 23 years ago, I mean, rates were hovering around 8.5%.
Yeah.
And the real estate market was very busy at the time, but it was busy for those that went out and hunted the business down.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, there's a lot of people that get into this business. They feel that the phone's going to ring. They feel there's not much effort into it. And it is a 7-day-a-week grind that you put in. And the results can be there. So I see, you know, really what we're seeing right now is an adjustment to the rates because we've been used to these historically low rates. So, you know, a variable right now is still around 3.5%. That's still really low. I mean, when I bought my first home, it was 14.5%. So, you know, to put that into
After this rate increase in September, rates will be the highest since 2008, though.
yeah.
Which is the highest since I've got in the industry. I talked about this with a bunch of people, like
14.5% mortage?
14.5% when I
my
first started.
parents had like
Oh,
18. at
close
the
to 18 to
time.
20.
My
yeah.
dad would update his variable
I
mortgage
have
like
one
every
too, but
week.
like it's
But absolutely.
little different reason.
But when you look at that, even when rates were that high, there was a lot of real estate being sold.
Yeah.
Right? Even back when I look back at those times. I mean, if you were out there, you know, working and doing your open houses and representing your clients, you did really
Volume
well.
was still there. Yeah.
Well in real estate. And
Yeah.
those that didn't want to put the time and effort into it were the ones that got out of the business.
Well, that's
So-
the thing. Like the problem we're having right now, well, not the problem, but the volume of transactions per agent is going down. You must be seeing that so far this year.
Yep, down this year.
The
compared to
volume
last
per,
kind of
per
thing.
agent,
Yep.
the number of deals, but prices are still up. People don't want to hear this, but prices are still up about 10% from last year.
Absolutely.
Even, right? Like we went up and then we're coming back down a little bit, and we'll see if we kind of, you know,
level off.
yeah, like how big this pullback will be. But as a brokerage, like, do you feel some pressure of like, okay, in order to keep our total volume, we do have to increase our agents when the number of deals, like say that 12 per agent average drops down to 10, you know, you kind of have to add a couple more agents to the pool. Was that kind of...
We kind of look at it differently.
Yeah,
like we've increased our training, right? Like that's
Well, and that's the key. As you know, you remember coming up as a younger agent. There's tough times always. There's ups and downs in this industry, and the thing is the strong will survive. So it's just preparing the agents properly, because again, the market we just came from was a market we've never seen in all of our careers.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not the norm.
Yeah.
The norm is what we're going into, which is what we were accustomed to.
Yeah, more balanced market.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
we
training.
feel that increasing the agents is one thing, but increasing the training and the knowledge of how to go out there and actually work in the market, that to us is more important.
And services for
Services for the
existing,
agents.
Yeah.
experienced
I mean,
agents, that kind of thing.
Across the market, do you think we're reaching, like we talked about this in a previous episode, like that maybe this isn't a great time for someone to get their license?
Yeah, we both said that we don't think right now is a good time for people to be getting their license because of the saturation of agents that are out there. Now, to what Greg said, if you are a hustler, that's a different story.
Yeah.
If you're a
Yeah.
hustler in any business,
Yeah.
there's never
Yeah,
really a
look,
bad time.
Well, look,
You
when
can
I was
come in
getting into
there-
business 23 years ago, I had 3 senior agents that were that talked to me.
Don't do this.
And they said, "Don't do this, Craig.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Unless you got like 6 to 8 months income in the bank, just don't do it." And I said, "You know what? Now the challenge is there.
Yeah.
I really want to get into this and give it a shot." And I think it can be very rewarding. You've seen it.
I think this is the best time for an agent to get in.
absolutely.
Because that was
Absolutely.
smoke and mirrors what we
Yeah.
went through.
Yeah, it was.
So
totally.
you come in.
Totally. There's going to be some
Before,
people.
Yeah.
It was like it was easy. Now agents are calling us. This is the phone calls we get. They're like, "So my listing's not selling. What do I do?" Okay, well, this is the reality.
do, yeah.
This is what we used to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why, like, as an experienced or hustling agent,
Yeah.
it's super easy because that's, oh man, there's going to be expired listings.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, think of how many buyers you had to run around with. Like,
Yeah.
you've got buyers now. You've got great opportunity to close a lot more transactions.
That's right.
So I think there is opportunity within it, and it's going to come back to who's actually a better agent, like who can actually
Correct.
get this
Screwed.
property sold.
I'm sure Chandler has done. You just have to go back a few years yourself. I mean, and sure, Neil, when you first got it,
I said, I'm
you
screwed.
think about
I only
it.
know greener
Yeah, yeah.
pastures.
Yeah, it's nothing to have a listing for 6 months and it not
Yeah.
sell and go through
Yeah.
multiple price reductions,
Yeah.
right? But that's sort of more of a balanced market.
true.
Like it's the way it should be.
Yeah, I was dealing with an agent the other day, and like because it was actually a difficult negotiation, right? And I actually had a junior agent ask me about how to do an amendment because they hadn't done a deal
hadn't done
that
it.
required an
That's right.
amendment. Because for a while there was like, well, we got the inspection report back, and it's not great, but
We're
we're just
just
going
eating
to
it.
go through with the deal.
Yeah.
And in this case, like it's like, all right, we have a bit more leverage, and maybe we're going to go back to the seller and ask a few things to be fixed here. They're like, how do you do that? How does one amend a deal?
Exactly.
Because they hadn't been in that long. It was like the first time doing one.
Well, even you mentioned like I know you yourself have had conversations, being predominantly a buyer's agent in a lot of cases, and like
Yeah.
what we're seeing now is some of those newer, younger agents who tend to deal with more buyers
Yep.
are having an easier time now because
That's a
there's a
good
little
point.
bit more inventory, and
yeah.
they don't have to write 15 offers to get one accepted, right? So I mean, with every market, there's kind of ups and downs with it, and you just kind of like Naz said, just different perspective, but. I do see the number of agents getting into the business probably going down a little bit. I think that'll soften.
I feel like the volume and kind of interest level was close to this when I started, and I loved it because every house I went to, I was like, "All right, it's $299. We're getting this for like $275." Like I was all about like
You were all
and-
over it.
Yeah, and I always
Yeah.
knew we had one, and we'd always go see
Good
3 or
old
4
days.
houses, and the next
That's
day we'd
it.
chat about it. We'd submit our offer, and like I just loved it, and I felt as a buyer's agent like I had the strength.
Yeah.
So I had the money. I was like, yeah, you got that house, but like there's 10 others in the neighborhood that we
Yeah.
can also get the
Yeah,
house
yeah,
from.
totally.
And so we come with the money, and so I felt it was sweet. We had all the strength, and then these last couple of years have been a grind. Like I just feel like I have no strength. We just want your house, and we'll
Yeah, you
give
just
you
feel like a door.
everything
You
for
feel like
it.
a
Yeah.
door opener at times as a buyer's agent. You're like, well,
Yeah.
open the door, and it's whoever's buyer is most aggressive is going to have the best chance of winning it. But
Yeah.
I had a client who he built his whole portfolio, which he probably was up around 150 doors before he kind of took a break. And man, like we would go and we would offer them 30 grand under ask, and they'd say no. He's like, all right, wait 2 weeks and offer them 40 grand under ask.
Yeah.
Like, and we would submit 10 to 12 offers a year, and we'd get 3 or 4. But they were all deals, man. They were all
Yeah.
deals. And then he rode that in the upswing and did really quite well. Yeah.
Question: I don't even know if you guys can answer this. What's the craziest shit you've seen an agent do, like in a deal? Whether it be something they did for a negotiation. I feel like Ryan's got some good
man.
ones. What can you say?
This is the Ryan question right here.
this is-
Because
what-
he's the one that gets the calls.
don't
What
look
is
at-
the
don't look
weirdest
at me.
shit that you've? I had a weird kind of.
like,
Mine wasn't the
you mean
weirdest.
you mean like rule breaking or like something funny they
Could
wrote
be
to a
rule
deal?
breaking, funny, whatever you're allowed to say. I'm sure he's probably got a bunch in all of them. When you're dealing with 200 agents,
And that not just our 200 agents, but the agents on the other side.
Yeah,
Sometimes
exactly.
I see something come in from another agent, I'm like, What is this nonsense?
You're seeing thousands of deals across your desk
Yeah.
every year, so there's going to be some crazy shit. I'll say one little story that we had was I pulled up to a brand new house. It was a vacant brand new home that had been built, and I was showing it to my client. We walk in the front door, and I hear a little bit of noise. I'm like, it's a big house. Like, it was like a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, like decent sized home. So I'm like, probably just something creaking as the door opened or whatever. Didn't really think much of it. Like, walking through the house, whatever. Go upstairs, go in the master bedroom, and I go in the ensuite, and my client goes in the walk-in closet. My client just super casually opens up the walk-in closet door, and there's somebody in the walk-in closet. And my client doesn't even know, not a gasp, not a anything. Turns around and just goes, "There's somebody in the walk-in closet." Closes the door and just keeps walking.
Are they alive?
And 100%. So I
We've got a
go
couple
over. I'm
agents
like,
find people dead.
Yeah.
I thought he was joking.
I found a couple over the years. Yeah.
But
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
anyways, I called Ryan. Ryan's like, yeah, like, you gotta call cops. So called the police.
Like,
and
and they're robbing the place.
these kids had broken into the house. They were young kids, and they broken into the house, and they were just hanging out, having like they had they were smoking darts, and there was joints all over the floor, and there's food everywhere, and they were just hanging out, living in this house.
amazing.
It was a staged home, so they were just like, whatever. But anyways, the cops, I called them, and they were like, oh, like, okay, yeah, sure. And then like 2 minutes later, my phone rings again. They're like, hold up, the people are still in the house with you right now? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh shit, okay, we'll have somebody over there in 2 seconds. And literally within like 30 seconons, cop cars come barreling down the street, pull in.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, they bust the door open, they just come flying up, a bunch of them like ready to go, and they arrest the kids and all that. But I remember calling
Yeah,
you, and you were
yeah, I
like,
remember that.
They're
Yeah.
still in the house? And I'm like, no, I'm on the phone with Ryan, literally looking at the kid. There's two of them hiding in the closet. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm looking him right in the eyes. He's in the house. And you're like, okay.
They're smoking cigarettes with you.
Literally,
They're just chilling.
And we're just sitting there chilling, having sushi. It was a good time. But,
Salt and vinegar chips over there. Yeah.
but-
Yeah, no, we've seen a ton of that stuff, and again, thankfully, not a ton that have happened to our own direct, from our own people. But we've, I always laugh when the Real Estate Commission, disciplinary newsletters come out
yeah.
and stuff like that. That's
was
like
a
the most
doozy
popular
recently.
read.
Yeah.
And so we've been on the other end of a few of those. But like Craig said, we've had people find, dead bodies. We've had. People completely wreck homes. We had a guy, I remember one of our guys showed a house, I think it was an open house. He landed there, went to go open the door, went to go check out the house for the first time, and like fell down the stairs and put his shoulder right through the gyprock of the wall. Like, he'd only been in the house for like 8 minutes. And he called me immediately. But like, yeah, we've had some really funny ones, but of course you have some really like sketchy, like underhanded kind of stuff too. And, luckily I don't feel like there's a ton of that goes on, but over the years, you definitely get a bit of it for sure. I could do a whole probably.
Yeah,
I think
that's
you
so
all
on
say, but he's got to be careful on what he says.
Yeah.
One weird one that stands out to me, like I had someone amend a deal and like list all this stupid stuff that they wanted the seller to fix, and one of them was like broken toilet paper roll, made floor powder room bath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
That's
are you
crazy.
kidding me? And I broke my toe one time at a home inspection. Like 2 minutes into a home inspection, I slid down basement stairs, broke my toe, and then had to proceed like that I wasn't in pain for the next hour and a half
Yeah.
for the whole home
Yeah.
inspection. And then like I got home and like finally took my shoe and sock off. It was just like covered in blood. It was gross. Anyway, what else we got for other questions? What if people?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So those are some of the more chill ones. I want to ask you guys why Remax. I know you guys, like you said, you came from another brand and you came over to Remax. What was kind of the drawing factor that brings you in and kind of the value?
Yeah, definitely there's a big difference. I mean, we came from a brand that was predominantly in the States and a much smaller network. And like, honestly, it was just one of those things where you didn't know what you were missing until you got to that brand and you realized how much more emphasis and how much more, brand power and credibility the balloon brings you, until you get there, right? And we have agents that comment on that regularly when they get over there. They're not having to explain themselves. If your card has a Remax balloon on it, people know what you do. That you don't have to explain that a lot.
Also, now so many people are
right?
migrating across the country.
Yeah,
I noticed that
it's global.
now.
Like-
Now a lot like people, you might have kind of the boutique brokerages in an area.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter where you're coming from in Canada. They
know
kind of know the
Yes.
Remax.
Well, we have
for
agents
sure,
that have
yeah.
gone on vacation to all sorts of places all overseas, and they they always take a picture of themselves in front of the
Yeah,
Remax
yeah.
office. Like,
Well, they do
it's-
that
it's
to
a-
write
it's a
off the
funny-
vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
It helps.
Totally.
You go
helps,
and just
yeah.
grab a
Yeah.
couple
It
like
helps.
business
Cards, yeah, brought some
Yes.
cards. Here you go.
Over
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Yeah, you want a house in Porter's Lake? Sure. Yeah.
So I hope CRA doesn't follow you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. They don't bust these,
We're all screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing a lot of business in Costa Rica these days.
I would say when I was in Costa Rica, we'd be driving like deep in the bush, and then there'd just randomly be a Remax sign on a tree for a piece of land, and I was like, no way. I was in Peru, and I didn't think they had like cars. I was going up on like a wagon, and we're going up the street in like an area that didn't have any like power, and there's just a Remax sign like glued to the side of a house, and I was like, oh my god, I meant to say to you those like these guys be like the brand has reach. Like it
That
doesn't
poor
matter.
sucker real estate agent just going down that dirt path.
You don't think the sign installer did that?
Oh man, I had to like a staple gun one to a lamp post or to a signpost in Lawrencetown a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, man, I'm kicking it old school here, like trying to climb up this thing as high as I could in the bushes, man. Put it up there.
Back to the brokerage. So, like, what would you guys? So, because again, we have a bunch of people, and I think there's a bunch of agents that listen. What would you guys say is the hardest part in running the brokerage? You guys have said you guys do over $1 billion in sales. There's a couple hundred agents. Obviously, Remax has a bunch of value for you guys. It's a global brand. Everyone knows what it is, and that's true. Every party I've ever been to, I've been like, "Oh, who do you work for?" I'm like, "Remax," and there's not a question of like, "Oh, who's that?" It's everyone knows what it is. But what's the hardest part of running it? Like, is it like you said, you want to make sure you keep your young agents happy, your older agents happy, or is it the actual in-house staff, or like what's kind of the big difficulty that you see on a day-to-day basis with it?
See, I know
partners.
because we all struggle with
Each other.
no,
not-
we
so
actually
I'm
get
not-
along except for Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan's
Except for Ryan, yeah.
That guy's
We get along
different.
pretty
That
good.
guy's different.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're cool.
I'm
Yeah,
the
we're
hard
cool.
guy to get along.
That guy's different. But it's letting people down. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we see the potential in a lot of these agents too, and
Yeah, yeah.
we know that they could be doing more.
Yeah.
We try to guide them as much as we can, and
Yeah.
then when they don't do it, we almost feel it's us that aren't doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a killer. It's
Yeah.
a killer, and I'm sure you guys with your team, you're going to experience that eventually as well because you guys have some great agents.
Yeah.
But this is what happens with the progression as you keep growing. Is you look at somebody and you're like, they're going to be a superstar. They're going to be amazing. They're going to be the next Neal and Chandler.
Yeah.
And then you're working with them, and they just and life happens with them too.
Yeah.
So you catch somebody in the wrong point in their life trying this business.
Yeah.
It could just not work out, and it's heartbreaking.
That's like kind of our industry in general, man. There's nothing worse in this industry. Sometimes you do everything right and still get the wrong result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know with young agents that like kicks them in the stomach every time. It's like, well, look back. Like, did you actually do everything right? And if you didn't, like, there's a lot of times, like, well, you probably should have gotten ahead of this home inspection issue before the inspection ever happened, or blah,
Yeah,
blah.
yeah,
Like,
big time.
you know, there's always things that they can learn from it. But sometimes in this business, as an agent, you do everything right and you get the wrong result, and it sucks because, you know, in the case of some agents, that could be 10% of their income for the year.
That's right.
Where they did everything right, and someone else's
So true.
emotion
So true.
just submarine this deal.
Well, and they also don't last long enough to reap the benefits of all their hard work.
Yeah.
So you give them all this line of this game plan for
Yeah.
to start their career, and they do everything, and then they're like, I'm broke.
Yeah.
I get a jet, and you're like, if you just wait 6
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
months,
Yeah.
you're gonna reap
Just
the
hang
benefits
in
of
there.
everything.
Hang in there, yeah.
But you know what,
Battle
too?
of
I
attrition.
think one of the most unique things about our business is that you have to work with one another, right? Like we at Remax have to work with another brokerage and try and get a deal done, and you have these opposing interests that have to work together on a regular basis, and it creates these really weird scenarios where you're kind of working for the same outcome, but you're completely at polar opposites of the spectrum, and it's some people don't do well in those situations.
And sometimes
right?
it's in-house too. And I like with
Yeah.
with younger agents sometimes, especially if they're coming out of a market where everything was so easy, and now there's a hard thing. And like I did this deal with a younger agent, and I could just tell they were terrified to talk to their client. Right? Like I had some like not great news, but something that was very much their responsibility to deal with. Everything totally reasonable. And the agent, wanted to call me and talk to me about it 8 times a day. I'm like, it's not a me. This isn't a me and you conversation. This is a you and your client conversation.
That's right.
You guys need to deal with that. And I could just tell they hadn't had to do that, and they were terrified of their own client.
Well, they were also, because I know who you're talking about, and I was talking to them through it, and they were very intimidated by
I was gonna
dealing
say,
with you as
yeah,
well.
He was probably nervous.
They were.
Scary,
They
yeah.
were.
Totally.
They
Chandler's
were.
a scary dude.
Chandler's scary as hell.
No, I'm the nicest guy ever.
Not nice. Not
We
nice.
also try to tell the agents not to watch the news too much. Man,
Yeah.
the news can bring you down. The media has
totally.
a way of turning the market into this. The sky is falling. It's going
Don't
dark.
turn on that damn
You know,
masterpiece.
and-
Do not watch this podcast.
For an agent to be very
I actually
good
had
at
an
it.
agent go like, "Oh, people are they're just watching the news and listening to these podcasts," and I'm like, I think she might be referring to me and doesn't realize I'm the person
I'm
that
the
does
guy.
that podcast.
Yeah.
But I look at Chandler, I look at Neal, I mean, I look at Naz. I mean, we've all seen these markets. We've seen we've seen the hottest market we've ever seen in the history of Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
But normally, I mean, you see an up, it's a down, it's in between, it's stable. You hear all that. But as you've seen it, and you've seen it many times, Chandler, as you adjust and grow with these markets, and you get to learn to adjust and adapt to it all, you can be very successful in real estate.
Totally.
You really can. I mean, you can make it a career. I mean, we have agents in our office, 45 years, 40 years, 35 years. If it was that bad, would they have been in the business that long? I don't think so, right? But they've been able to adjust to it. And I think if you've got an agent with a good work ethic, you're going to do well.
That's true. I agree with you.
Couple things, so we should probably wrap this up kind of in the next little bit. Like, what do you think is the one criteria that like makes a good agent? Like what's
Each
the
of you guys
first
have to
thing?
give one.
If you see someone walk through the door, they're a new agent, and right away you kind of know yes or no, they're gonna do well, they're gonna not. What is it? What's the thing you look for?
Well, I think drive is number one, because I mean, if you're driven, chances are you can go through a whole bunch of bumps, and you're still going to go, right. And that's because if, like Craig said, if you're listening to other people, or if you even see your own results, you can quickly get demoralized pretty quickly. But I think if you're really driven, you can make it happen. You just make your own way, right. But
And I think if you've got a personality, I think a lot of people that really don't do well in the business are those that
Wallflowers.
don't have a
Yeah.
personality. They really don't. I mean, they may have the work ethic, but they don't really have a personality. So I mean, it's hard for clients to, feel comfortable around them because they're just
Chandler and I
just
get
don't
here?
have it, right? No, but you guys have great personalities. You've always been outgoing. You both have always been very helpful. Right? So I mean, that makes a big difference. I mean, you say it all the time. I mean, agents that give will always get it back. I mean, they really do, right? And I think that's what's great about our office.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I looked at nurses, teachers, people in those type of military.
People are used to dealing with shit.
No, but you know
And are
what?
organized and-
Anybody who's there, who's in a caring, who can build trust very quickly,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
who actually cares, can actually succeed really quickly. Because the second you meet somebody and they know you care, and you can build that bond,
True.
they'll trust you to buy the biggest investment they're going to be.
And they'll wait for you too.
Oh, massive.
Like they'll stick
massive.
beside you.
And
all
the
the
key
way
to
through.
that is listening, right? People who listen, I always say, like, if you can listen to what people have to say and actually hear them out and formulate a solution to whatever the problem is, that's a huge one, right?
Another quick thing.
I got one other thing.
Okay.
So you go.
One of the things I liked about a brokerage, and it's kind of happened more recently, is that I always thought it was weird how many brokerages rent their own space. Like, we're out there
That's where I was going.
explaining to everyone that like the values of real estate ownership, and most of these brokerages out there, they rent their space. And some of them historically have defaulted on those leases, which is like, then it makes the news. And it's like, man, like that's a bad look. Like I actually think it's cool that our brokerage, I don't know how much of, I don't not put all of our business out there, but like you guys as brokerage owners have invested in our own spaces, which helps control the brokerage future. But also, man, there's something to be said for practicing what you preach. I think it's weird to go out there
100%.
like trying to sell people on real estate when you don't own anything.
Totally.
That's a weird look.
Philosophy.
You guys want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, when we came together as a partnership, I mean, we pooled our funds together and said, like, let's get out of these leases that that we've been in for all these years, because that was traditional the way brokerages run. I mean, you just said it. Most brokerages out there, they lease their space. So the three of us we came up with a game plan, what our business plan would be moving forward. And one of the top of that was to start owning our real estate, like doing what we preach on a day-to-day basis, especially me in the commercial world. It was like, I'm out there selling, properties to investors, and I'm saying, like, I should be doing the same thing. And even Neal used to say, hey, Craig, why aren't you buying your own real estate? He said it to me all the time.
I've been yelling at Craig for years.
Right? He yelled at me for years, but then myself and Naz and Ryan, we had the same feeling that we should start investing in properties. And it's the type of services and amenities that we put into the buildings that's for the agents that made a big difference too.
Well, man, when you own a house, it makes you a better real estate agent.
Sure it
Help
does.
someone buying a house. I think if you own commercial real estate, it probably makes you better able to advise someone about commercial real estate.
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys also bought a residential rental?
Yeah, we did.
So you guys have one residential rental right now as well as
We sold it too.
You sold it too?
Yeah, we did.
You guys flipped it over?
Well,
We're
just-
gonna be investing in other
We're going to
areas.
be investing in.
Nice.
with the company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
There's some more space.
Is
for
the idea then to grow with some residential rentals? Or do you guys want to
Not
stay on
at
the commercial
moment.
side?
We're going to
industrial
stay on the
side?
commercial side.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
tend to like it. The longer
Didn't
term
like being
leases.
landlords, eh, guys?
No, but didn't you know what it is?
We like being a commercial
Well, we are.
landlord.
We're
not-
commercial landlords.
We
That's
didn't
right.
really make that good of an apartment like
right.
a landlord in the apartment on the residential side. We sucked at it, didn't we?
Well, we watched Master Keys, and we decided that we were like, we're gonna flip. We're gonna flip.
I don't have a parking
Yeah.
spot. What the other tenant took my parking. I don't really need these headaches. I really don't.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the grind, man.
Yeah,
That's the grind.
but we're reinvesting that into other Remax locations
Yeah,
for the agents. Once
totally.
again,
Totally.
Do you guys have a go-to real estate joke? You know, like usually, like as agents or brokerages, man, you got like there's usually a go-to real estate joke.
When's the best time to buy real estate? Yesterday.
That's a true one.
Yeah.
You got one, Neil? I don't know.
A real estate joke?
You ever
real
see those
estate
things like on the staircase, like the assisted, like little elevator chairs?
Oh yeah.
I always go in and I say, "Man, I hate these things." And they go, "Oh, really? Why? They drive me up the wall." A little good icebreaker.
No, this goes back
That's
to that good
no.
personality thing
That's
and why
pretty
I'm
good.
wondering how
What's
I
the
changed
what's
my
the
top
what's the
producer.
key thing?
How he's the top producer.
What's the key thing when buying a pyramid? Making sure you get your money's worth.
God.
I'm gonna wrap it up.
I think we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, I think you do.
We all want
I think
out.
it already
Everybody
ended.
wants out of the studio now.
We want out now. Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, thanks for listening. If you guys thought this was interesting, let us know. If there's some more questions you guys want to get answered, let us know because we can find these guys pretty easily. We know where they sit and actually where they live, so we can get them answered. But again, thanks for listening. Check it out later. Thanks so much for watching the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. Don't forget to subscribe. But also check us out on Instagram and TikTok. You can find all the links below. Thanks again for checking us out.
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.